Welcome to Elevated and Melanated, where critical thinkers can come and discuss inconvenient truths and uncomfortable knowledge. I am your host, KT the Intellect.
It's your boy DJ the Finesse Kid.
And we want to thank you guys for joining us once again for another podcast. Really do appreciate it. As you like and subscribe, so we keep bringing value to the people, keep informing people with knowledge that can help them free themselves in these turbulent times. So
Crazy times,
yeah,
to say the
exactly.
least.
So before we even get into how you doing this today? How you doing today, DJ?
I am blessed, man. A lot of great news coming my way. A lot of great clients. Just started my services. I'm gonna start mentoring program, training program.
Yes, sir.
With functional fitness. Got a lot of things coming. A lot of things. Blessings around the way. So, how you living, bro?
Yeah. I'm good, man.
How's business, man?
Business booming. Business is growing. Business is
It's
growing. You know what I'm saying? But more so than not, you know what I'm saying, the knowledge is increasing, right? The focus is getting better. So we just want to just keep grinding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Keep grinding it out. It's just very interesting. Like especially the past year and a half, it just seems like the more and more I get into knowledge, the better and better my life is getting. While the system around is just crumbling. Like you know what I'm saying? So, but today,
I feel like we move with more conviction as well. I feel like lately I've been moving with more conviction because I just know that just beyond a shadow of a doubt that because I know how I'm moving and because I know that we're moving in truth, I know it's like it's inevitable.
exactly,
It's inevitable.
exactly. And so the truth we want to bring today for the people, right? You know what I'm saying, is who are the original Americans in the formation of this American government and where that comes from. So to begin with, right, I want to read off the definition for American. So this is from 1828 Noah Webster's dictionary. You can also find this in the 1828 Oxford Dictionary as well. So it goes American, right? A noun, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to descendants of Europeans born in America, right? So that's a definition they are working off of in the 16, 1700s, 1800s, right? Before it got flipped. So within this one definition, it says a lot. So it's evidence of identity theft just right here in this definition, right? Because it says who are the original Americans. It's the copper colored, right? So copper colored, brass. That's our hue. You know what I'm saying? Because
because black isn't a color.
Yeah. I mean, it's a color, but it's not our color. You know what I'm saying? Like we're different hues of metals. You know what I'm saying? Copper. You know what I'm saying? Almond. You know what I'm saying? Like brass. These things, right? So that term American was applied to the Aboriginals before Europeans got here, right? Then it says here that the copper colorations were found here by the Europeans, right? And then it was applied to the descendants of the Europeans born in America. So through settler colonialism, the Europeans who came here were able to take on the identity of the Aboriginals who were already here. Thus, that's where we get the term American.
Throughout time, obviously, with their war tactics,
there was wars and things that led to treaties, and what really was able to do this is in terms of them able to identify is they rebelled against their original the original nations, their original monarchies, and they wanted to set up a free nation where they could be free because the overwhelming majority of Europeans came over here as peasants, as bondsmen, as slaves or Slavs. That's where the term slave comes from. And even the term kidnapper, it comes from all the people, all the kids that were being kidnapped off the streets of London, off the streets of Birmingham during the 17 and 1800s. That's where that term kidnapper comes from. There were thousands and thousands of kids kidnapped every year and sent to America with contracts on their head. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And so that's where that term even comes from. So when they came over here and they saw the way of life of the Aboriginals over here, the republics they already had set up and how they were functioning and how they were their treaties were formed and how they came together to form governments.
We will be having pictures of this, by the way, of what the actual Aboriginals look like.
Yeah.
We'll have these pictures up for you so that you can see what actual Aboriginals look like in these times.
Exactly, because some of our people are visual learners. And not so, and it's just easier to show than it is to tell. So when we edit this, we will insert some images. But yeah, when they came over here and they saw the way of life, where the people are sovereign, and that's the big difference in a republic. The people are sovereign. In a monarchy, which is what they had in Europe or in France, Britain, things of that nature, the king and the queen are sovereign, right? And the people are not. So the main difference, that's the main difference between a monarchy and a republic. The people have the power. In a monarchy, the king and the queen have the power. So they came over here and they saw this, saw how people were living, and they wanted to rebel against their system, the feudal system, the monarchy that they had set
Mhm.
up, different monarchies they had set up in Europe. So that's what that was partly what led to the American Revolution. Not just the taxation; they saw another system, and
Mhm.
that's what is not talked about enough. Because we're going to get into it. There's resolutions on all this stuff that, especially in particular, the Iroquois Confederacy had a huge impact and a huge influence on the framers of the Constitution, and just allowing them to be here. Because you have to understand that for people to exist on the land, for people to create a country, you have to come to the sovereigns, right? And so the sovereigns of America were the Aboriginals, the original
Mhm.
people here. They were the ones. They were the landholders. They were the original landholders. So the Europeans who wanted to set up the United States of America, they had to come to them and create these formations of treaties, right? So they can have contracts with the people, with the indigenous people of the land, giving them permission for their
Mhm.
enterprise to exist, right?
Yep.
So we're gonna dive into the congressional record again because the congressional record has tons of knowledge that people just aren't reading these days, right?
Yeah, and it's important, like you said, just because I mean, as to this day, this is what our country and everything is kind of built upon, or some of the things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because we're gonna talk about jurisdiction as well because most American Indians have been reclassified and misclassified. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the copper colored races, the Aboriginals, most of it have were reclassified as colored, Negro, mulatto, African American, Afro American, Black. All these different terms have been coined to describe a person without describing their heritage. Because if they were to describe that person's heritage, or if Black people, or if people of color, and with quotation marks, knew exactly who their ancestors were
Mm-hmm.
and that they're the original landholders, then they can take steps to get that land back.
Rise up
Like, you know what I'm saying? And
and move in
so
truth.
exactly. So we're gonna dive into this so people can understand the different jurisdictions that are on the land, and how if you are in the United States jurisdiction and you're not supposed to be, how you can correct that, right?
Yeah.
So this is coming straight out the congressional record. It's the 100th Congress, first session. So this is in 1987. So this resolution was to acknowledge the contribution of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution and to reaffirm the continuing government to government relationship between Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. Now, like he says there, the continuing government to government relationship, right? Which means that there are multiple governments that are on this land currently,
Mm-hmm.
and whichever one you have affiliation with is going to determine whose jurisdiction you're in, whether you're in commercial law or corporate law, which is the U.S. Code, their statutes, resolutions, and acts, or if you're going to be under the common law, you know what I'm saying, God's law, natural law, and
I'll
under the
take the latter.
yeah, and I think when a lot of people understand the difference between the two, they're gonna take the latter as
Oh
well.
yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
to dive into this resolution, so to begin with, it goes to acknowledge the contribution of the Iroquois Confederacy and Nations to the development of the United States Constitution and to reaffirm the continuing government to government relationship between the Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts, principles, and governmental practices of the Six Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. And whereas the Confederacy is well, let me stop right there real quick because I want to put some emphasis on certain things in this paragraph.
Mhm.
So it already talked about in the second paragraph. George Washington and Benjamin Franklin admired the concepts, principles, and the way of life of the Aboriginals who were here. So that's saying one thing, right? Because we talk, or the overall media presents us as like Aboriginals or Indians here were savage, right? They didn't have it. They were uncivilized. They had no forms of government. But it right here in the resolution is telling us that George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, who were other than Thomas Jefferson, probably the two biggest historical figures during the American Revolution, they looked to those nations. They looked to how those nations integrated and how they were able to come through their differences. They looked to them, you know what I'm saying, when they were forming their own government because they took concepts from the Iroquois Confederacy, and they have something called the Great Law of Peace, which was basically their constitution. They took a lot of concepts out of their constitution
Mm.
to incorporate into the United States of America.
Yep.
Yes, sir. So like,
Plagiarism.
yeah, to a point, like I said, like
Remember,
people had to have permission. You know what I'm saying? So like, what the history we've been given is just like these Europeans just came over here and railroaded people. When that's not exactly that's not the case at all. You know what I'm saying?
did you watch Dave Chappelle's latest comedy special?
No, I have which one?
The most recent one, he was basically saying, he said, "Here's my interpretation of what the Declaration of Independence."
Oh yeah,
He goes, hurry up, finish writing that declaration,
yeah. Oh
niggas.
yeah. Okay, I do remember this. I do remember this. Yeah, exactly. Because Dave Chappelle dropped us some shit right there. He said,
Yeah.
hurry because like when you read the Declaration, not just Declaration of Independence, you read the Constitution. It starts off,
Constitution, my
you know what I'm
bad.
saying, all people are created equal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like that was something that was already instilled into the people who already lived in America. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And that was conferred over to the United States of America Constitution because in Europe it wasn't like that. There were sovereigns and there were peasants. You know what I'm saying? There were serfs. So
mm,
in Europe, that notion of all men are created equal wasn't a thing. And because the American Revolution was so impactful to the world's history, those human rights have been conferred to the world through the world courts and the United Nations and things of that nature. So these concepts have had, you know what I'm saying, very long ranging impacts on not just America but on the world. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
of
Because a
course.
lot of the human rights that the world that the UN says are human rights come from the Constitution and come from the understanding that the people give the power to the government. It's not the other way around. The government do not give power to the people. The people give power to the government. And as
What
long
if
as
I told you V for Vendetta
you
was not a joke? You
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Like, yeah. What if I? Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly what he said in V for Vendetta was
he,
said in 2020.
yeah,
When the virus that in V for Vendetta was said in 2020 that took out a
man.
big chunk of the world. So
Yeah,
a lot of stuff in V for Vendetta is very prophetic film. And
just gonna drop some
yeah,
gems
we
out
might have to
there.
make a film series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because I know
someone.
there's a lot of films that what we're going through right now. They were hinting at in these films. You know what I'm saying? Because the powers that be and the people that fund these huge blockbusters, these huge art projects, they get insider information, and so they're able to put, you know what I'm saying, like little Easter eggs here and there in their movies. You know what I'm saying? That's hinting at what's to come. You feel me?
Mhm.
So to go on with the resolution, whereas the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was explicitly molded upon explicitly modeled upon the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. So, like he said right here, just in this paragraph, the idea of a republic came from the people who were here. In particular, the ones that they were working with the Iroquois Confederacy, but there were republics all over the Americas, and where the people were in charge, where the people were the sovereigns, right?
Mhm.
So to go on, whereas since the formation of the United States, the Congress has recognized the sovereign status of Indian tribes and has, through the exercise of powers reserved to the federal government and the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, dealt with Indian tribes on a government to government basis, and has, through the Treaty Clause, entered into 370 treaties with Indian nations. Right. So I want to stop there. So there's over
Damn,
370 treaties,
that's crazy.
between the different Indian tribes or clans, I should say, because tribe can be seen as a derogatory word, but
Yeah,
the different clans in America, right? There's over 370 treaties because there were so many wars. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
If anybody does any
Goes
uh,
against those treaties.
right. Well, I was going to say if anybody does any research into the Indian Wars, right,
Uh,
from the 1600s until the early 1900s,
there's
there were Indian Wars constantly.
and that's when they say when there's blood in the streets, you buy because that's right around the time I'm saying obviously the family started buying was around the
Exactly,
1600s.
and what that really comes from is because when that blood in the streets really the landowners. So like, if you can kill, and this comes back to like all the lynchings and stuff of that nature that were going on during that time. A lot of the people they were lynching were landowners.
Mhm.
If you go back and you look at those old pictures, those old videos, like a lot of those people that were lynching, they were in suits. You know what I'm saying? They was in jackets. Those are not poor dudes. Those are people who owned 100 acres, 1,000 acres. You know, that wasn't unheard of for somebody that looked like us to own that amount of land.
Yeah.
And so, as the United States, the 13 colonies started moving westward, It was a big land grab, and really the Civil War, which was, at the time was referred to as secession war, because secession refers to land grabs. They're wars over land. So all the Indian wars were so that the former 13 colonies, which is now the United States of America, for the European power structure to take over the rest of the continent in terms of take over the land. But like it says here, there was treaties set up because all people were fighting for their land. There were treaties set up so that the United States can never really own the land; they can only have it in trust.
Mm.
And we're going to get to that in here because the land is still belongs to the indigenous people. It's just the indigenous people have been misclassified.
And we're so lost and taken away from God. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly, and take it away from themselves.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure in the episodes to come about how they take us away. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And all the propaganda they throw out
Yeah,
there. So
exactly, exactly. But really, I want people to take away from this is understanding that the Republican principles that are in the Constitution were already here,
mm,
and the Europeans that came over here, they got a lot of those principles from the Aboriginals that were already here, right?
yeah,
And if we understand that we were integral in the formation of this government, then we can learn to govern ourselves again. Because, like you said, there's a government to government relationship. If you're still in your proper status, like you can create your own government just by creating an indigenous trust and adding your family to it. Like there's ways to go about governing yourself, but first you must know the principles of civics and law to do so. So you're not, you know what I'm saying, in somebody else's jurisdiction unknowingly.
and I know it can seem, you know what I'm saying, to be scary to govern your own self, but you got to understand with time becomes more knowledge and more information. So with the more information that you come upon, that KT's providing or the resources that are actually out there for you, it's not as scary as it may seem. No matter how no matter how much they may try to, the powers that be may try to, make it seem like, oh, doing this is wrong. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
So
Yeah, and
because they do try to do that. They try to make it seem like that, right? Like,
hmm
oh, being a quote unquote a sovereign or a person who's
yeah, they got
outside the system,
hmm
or they'll try to use all these words to make it seem like we're not, like you said, the actual landowners here.
exactly, exactly. And what really should scare people is what happens when you're in another man's system and they want you to do something you don't want to do. And if you're in their system voluntarily, you don't have to do that because you signed that contract. And a lot of this comes too is staying in honor. If you a U.S. citizen and they want you to do something and you volunteer to be a U.S. citizen, you shouldn't have anything to complain about because you agree to take on their rules.
Mm,
Now, if you don't want to be a U.S. citizen and you want to sever that contract because it's really fraudulent anyways,
yeah,
then you can do so. You know what I'm saying?
and
But
have actual rights as an actual a human being, not rights as
who are privileged.
privileges. I'm sorry,
Yeah, because
privileges
U.S.
as a
citizens,
citizen.
yeah, U.S. citizens don't have rights. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? They have privileges and immunities, which can all be taken away from you at any time.
And what's that example you always give me? Like if I was at my job and just to
Oh
give an
yeah,
example
yeah,
for the
yeah,
people.
exactly. So like what? Yeah, for jurisdiction, right? Because some people may not know what jurisdiction or is or what it means. So let's say you work at a job, right? Let's say you work at McDonald's and they give you a uniform. So because you voluntarily sign up to work for that corporation can dictate what you do with your time and what you wear when you're in their space that they control. So you're gonna wear that uniform. But if a customer comes in, he doesn't have to wear a McDonald's uniform. He can wear whatever he wants to wear as long as he has
Mhm.
shirts and shoes on, right? That's because that customer didn't agree to be an employee. Thus, that customer isn't in the corporate jurisdiction of McDonald's. There's no difference with the United States corporation, and we'll put a excerpt on the screen for the definition of the United States. It is a federal corporation. With it being a corporation, U.S. citizens are nothing but employees or property, depending on how you look at it, of the United States corporation. Thus, they can control you, or I should say, thus they can put laws or not laws, codes and rules on the books that you have to follow
And
as being in
manipulate
a
you.
as being in a jurisdiction.
Yep.
So that's one of the easiest way to look at it. It's just a business, right? It ain't nothing but a corporation.
Non-emotional decisions,
Yeah.
people.
Either you're with them, you're under their tutelage, you're subject to their jurisdiction, or you're outside of it and you're under the common law. In the common law, there is no crimes unless there's a victim. So smoking weed, drugs, driving fast, jaywalking, these are all victimless crimes that people in their proper status don't get taxed for because that's really all they're doing when they take you to court, trying to get some money out of you, especially with these victimless crimes. They
Mhm.
just want some bread out you.
It's like if a job, gives you, or a school gives you summons for being out of code,
Right.
for misdressing correctly, or
Right. It's just
maybe
like
you break, maybe you gave too much sauce on a pizza, and now the job is gonna give you, you know what I'm
they're
saying?
gonna write you up,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
That's basically what we're saying, people.
exactly, but in their system, instead of writing you up, they just write you a ticket,
Take it.
and you
Yep.
got to pay $200 for speeding. You know what I'm saying? That money just goes into their pockets. So, but to go on with the resolution, right? So, that, like you said, 370 treaties with the Indian tribal nations, and whereas from the first treaty entered into with an Indian nation, the treaty with the Delaware Indians of September 17th, 1778, and thereafter in every Indian treaty until the secession of treaty making in 1871. So that's a very interesting year. 1871. That's when the Organic Act of Congress was made, and they created the first iteration of the United States Corporation after the Civil War. So they don't have no real authority. I mean, I shouldn't say authority. They stopped making treaties in 1871 because the corporation took over.
Mm.
So to keep going, the Congress has assumed a trust, responsibility, and obligation to Indian tribes and their members to exercise the utmost good faith in dealing with the Indians as provided in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. So, like I said, they have a trust responsibility. All the land in America is in a trust, right? Even if you think you own some land, if the land you have is in your social security number, you don't own that land. Even if you paid off the mortgage, you understand you still have to pay property taxes. And if you don't pay those property taxes, the government will take the land. That's because you don't really own the land because you don't own the formation of that social security number. So whatever you buy with that social security number is just in the United States trust. It's not really your land. You just have use to it. You have the appearance of ownership, and that's what they want. They want the appearance of things in this system because nothing really is what it seems,
Mm.
right? So
It's a matrix.
yeah, it's a
What I
matrix.
say.
So to go on, whereas Congress has consistently reaffirmed these fundamental policies over the past 200 years through legislation specifically designed to honor this special relationship, and whereas the judicial system of the United States has constantly recognized and reaffirmed this special relationship, so they're being very clear. If you're an Aboriginal or American Indian, they have a trust obligation to you. So if you were to try to reformat your government, they have to help you. They have to give you resources if you do it the proper way. You can go and get land back that may have been taken from your great great grandfather, your great great grandmother. You just have to do the paperwork and the legwork because there's three ways to get land, right? Either through business, commerce, war, or through some court system like a law, like you got your land back because it was wrongfully taken from your grandmother, and through a law case you got it back, right? So
Mm.
there's only three ways to get land: war, business, and through the courts, right?
And
And
understand the pen is mightier than the sword, people.
100%,
More
100%.
times than not, obviously. Like you said, war is a way. You know what I'm saying?
War is a way.
Nobody's
Yeah,
bulletproof, but you know what I'm saying? A
yeah, but
pen is mightier than the
yeah,
sword.
and the pen is how we're in the situation because I said everybody got reclassified. They didn't I shouldn't say defeat. They didn't eradicate the American Indian. They just reclassified them into all these misnomers so that they can't have their rights. Because if you're claiming to be an African American or a Negro, or you're claiming to be black, but really your grandma is Cherokee or Choctaw or Chickasaw or something like that, Creek or something, then you're not in your proper place. Thus, you don't get those treaty protections of the 370 treaties that they have with the Indian
Ding,
nations
ding,
here.
ding, ding, ding,
You know what
ding.
I'm saying?
Like, man,
So
my boy's
so
dropping
it's
gems over here.
very you know what I'm saying, it's very pertinent for you to understand this information, understand who you are, and actually do the legwork.
Mm.
Don't just tell me you African American, your last name Jones, and you ain't done no work on it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Unless you came to America in the last two generations, because before the 1960s there was effectively no real African immigration to the Americas. So unless you if your people were here before the 1960s, it's a 90% chance that you're 100% Aboriginal. Like, now, there was an African slave trade, and there is a certain percentage of the Black American bloodline that is African, but that's probably like 5 to 10%. They only brought a couple 100,000 slaves over here. There was millions of Aboriginals already in North America,
Mm.
and that's what people have to understand.
Drop them pictures right
Yeah, we'll drop them pictures right here. You know what I'm saying, so
here.
people can see with their eyes. You know what I'm saying, like who they were referring to, especially east of the Mississippi. You know what I'm saying, the Native American tribes that they show us in the movies. the more mongoloid and Asian looking ones is because they're indigenous to Siberia. They came over on the land bridge thousands of years ago, but Aboriginals were already here. You know what I'm saying? We had already been around the whole globe. So they were here before Caucasians, but they were not here before the Aboriginals. They were mainly in the western part of the United States. And that's why most of the reservation land is in the western part of the United States.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So to go on with the resolution.
Damn, JT. Shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
you gotta let that motherfucker breathe right
yeah.
there.
So now for be it, right? So the Congress on the occasion of 200th anniversary of signing the United States Constitution acknowledged the historical debt the Republic of the United States of America owes to the Iroquois Confederacy and other Indian nations for their demonstration of enlightened democratic principles of government and their example of a free association of independent Indian nations. So I want to really touch on this. So they said that Congress has recognized again and again they have a historical debt to the Aboriginals here because they introduced them the Republican democratic principles that they were not used to, that was not the norm in Europe, and because they got introduced to those principles, it led to the American Revolution and the freedom for a lot of Caucasian people who came over here as immigrants, so that they can not be peasants but be actual full citizens in a republic. So there isn't a great debt there, and if uh, so-called Black or African American people would stand on who they were and actually conduct business with people the proper way, the respect that they would get would surpass anybody else in the nation because this is our nation. So just like if you go to China, you got to respect the Chinese the most. You go to Vietnam, you got to respect the Vietnamese the most. You come to America, you got to respect the Aboriginal the most because we were the people who were here first. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But if you're not claiming that, if you're not standing on that, you know what I'm saying? If you're not conducting yourself as such, then people are gonna treat you as, you know what I'm saying, somebody with no ancestral land, and that's the crux of the Black American, you know what I'm saying, like economic poverty. Poverty, all wealth starts with land. Everything you get out of land, you get gold, silver, oil, you know what I'm saying? You can grow food, you know what I'm saying? All of that starts with land. So that's the basis of all wealth. So if you have lost your ancestral land and you own nothing, then you will have no wealth. And that's the basis of what's happening to the Black American. All these immigrants are coming from other places in the world where their family still owns land. So they still have a basis of wealth and they come over here to do business. Well, if you lost your land and you don't have any land, it's going to be much harder for you to do business and compete with people on a commercial level. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's really the plight of the Black American. He doesn't understand who he is, and thus he cannot do business the correct way because all these treaties are business contracts.
Mm.
And that's what people got to understand. Like, Caucasians were allowed to be here because we were doing good business. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, there was wars and stuff, but that's not everybody. Not everything's a monolith. It's not so black and white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance in all of this. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's people fighting on both sides for both sides. And that's what we got to understand. You know what I mean? A lot of the movies they show us, whether it be 12 Years a Slave, you know what I'm saying, whatever Amistad, whatever slave movie you want to think of, they're showing you that skewed version of history to depower you, to make you think, oh, I'm a slave, I never owned nothing, put you in a victim state of mind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
And continue to be mad and emotional
overly,
when like you
exactly.
said at the beginning or earlier, it's business contract, not emotional contract.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That's the
facts.
biggest thing right there
Yeah,
is making non-emotional decisions. I had to get up outside of that matrix because you get thrown up inside of that, like you said, when they make these kind of movies that take us away from our history.
you know, 100%. Like in even like Roots. So we're gonna do a whole episode on Roots. Roots is 100% bullshit. Alex Haley was sued by a Caucasian man for plagiarizing his work. You know what I'm saying? So Alex Haley, and he was a naval intelligence officer, very likely an agent. So that's why they keep remaking Roots too. Like it was a Roots back then, and it just made a new one. Like, you know what I'm saying? Why do they keep telling these stories? It's to ingrain into the indigenous people of the land that you're not from here. You're just imported. We brought you here to work, and you have no real status in this land.
And if
But
you can continue to throw lies out there, you know what I'm saying, and it's going to continue to generationally, be thrown in their subconsciously, I should say.
exactly. So then you won't even try to rule. You won't even try to govern
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It'll create a custodial
It's really
relationship with you
genius.
and the colonizer. So it really is genius. But
Yeah.
there's a way out of all of this because
Mm.
our ancestors were not fools. And this is another thing too. When it talk about slavery, it makes you think that your ancestors were stupid. Your ancestors were not stupid.
No.
they formulated these treaties so that you always have a way out. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't just
They
give
was
over this
knowing.
land. Like, you know what I'm saying? People thinking they just gave over this land. This land is not given over. It's in trust, but the people who was in trust for ain't claiming it. So they can administrate over the land. That's all banks can do. They can't even sell the land outright. They can give you a deed, but ask for an unload of your property. Ask for an aboriginal title. They can't give that to you because they don't have the authority to give that to you, because only an aboriginal or an indigenous person can do that, can put
With
that in a
paperwork,
trust. Yeah, yeah, with the correct
and pen,
paperwork.
baby. Pen.
Exactly. Thus, the pen is mightier than the sword,
Yep.
right? So to go on, it says the Congress also hereby reaffirms the continue. Oh, I'm sorry. The constitutionally recognized government-to-government relationship with Indian tribes, which has historically been the cornerstone of this nation's official Indian policy. The Congress specifically acknowledged and reaffirms the trust, responsibility, and obligation of the United States government to Indian tribes, including Alaska Natives, for their preservation, protection, and enhancement, including the provision of health, education, social, and economic assistance programs as necessary to assist tribes to perform their governmental responsibility to provide for the social and economic well being of their members, to preserve tribal cultural identity and heritage. So that's just a big paragraph. Once again,
Yeah.
they're telling you that they have an obligation to help you if you're in your proper status, if you're claiming the right thing. But if you're claiming you're from another country, you're claiming you're from another continent, and you can't prove that, you haven't done the legwork to prove that, you're gonna get treated as a person that doesn't know who they are, that doesn't know what they're talking about, and thus you'll have no respect, thus you'll have no power. So the Congress also acknowledges the need to exercise the utmost good faith in upholding its treaties with the various tribes as the tribes understood them to be, and the duty of a great nation to uphold its legal and moral obligations for the benefit of all its citizens, so that they and their posterity may also continue to enjoy the rights they have enshrined in the United States Constitution for time immemorial, right? So that's where the summary of it, that's where it ends, right?
We gotta pay homage
So
to our ancestors,
yeah,
man.
you know what I'm saying? And like, you do want to take the answers because they left you a way out.
Yep.
They left you a way to keep your original aboriginal status, and so that your land can be free of taxation, so that you're not taxed. So we'll go through this. In the Constitution, there's an Indians not tax clause. You know what I'm saying? So if you're in the right status, why are you paying taxes? Aboriginal on this land should be paying taxes to a foreign corporation, because the IRS is nothing but the bookkeeper or the tax collector for the United States corporation, and all they do is they keep the books. So if you come to the bookkeeper with the right information in your proper status, the bookkeeper understands that American Indians or Aboriginals don't have to pay taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in your proper status. So that's another thing that another protection that you get with the treaty clauses, right? Because these treaties are set up so that the indigenous Aboriginal people of the land do not lose what was once theirs, and that's the sovereignty over the land.
Yeah.
And once we slipped into this United States status, after some of us coming out of slavery, because during the slave period, there are people who are enslaved. There are people who are still living in their Aboriginal nation all at the same time. Just like as I sit here, there's somebody, you know what I'm saying, locked up in prison right now while I'm free. You know what I'm saying? There's many different people exist in many different realities in the same paradigm,
Yeah.
depending on their level of education, their level of, you know what I'm saying, of execution.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Draining energy like they're in a battery cell. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like they're in a
you
cell,
know,
like
yeah,
a cell in a prison. You know what I'm saying?
exactly. So just like I'm sitting here
Because we're
free, and there's
copper.
oh
It's
yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
man. We
no,
take we are real power, man. They take our energy when when they put our people inside the jail cells.
100%, 100%, and that's on purpose in the 14th, 13th Amendment, excuse me, where it says like involuntary servitude is illegal except through punishment for crime. So
Mm.
so they make a lot of things criminal that are just regular activities, like smoking weed. We've been smoking weed.
They knew our people
Yeah,
loved that.
you know what
You
I'm
know?
saying? Like I could show you stuff in Christopher Columbus's journal when he was bringing people back from the islands, going back to Europe. They was rolling up blunts, but he didn't call it a blunt. He described it as, you know what I'm saying, like a
Peace
fire
pipe or
stick.
something.
No, he could, like,
Oh.
because they were rolling up tobacco leaves with weed. You know what I'm saying, or hemp, or you know what I'm saying, because like even the founding fathers, George Washington and them were rich off hemp. like you know what I'm saying, which is
Mhm.
the male is it the male version or the female version of the marijuana plant. I forget, but
Mhm.
it's one of those two. But yeah, and
The male version.
yeah, well, and I'll insert some slides here
Shout out
with some
Camps.
old like Virginia tobacco, you know what I'm saying, posters and stuff with like where there's aboriginals on there smoking, you know what I'm saying, smoking a peace pipe, smoking a blunt. Like we've been doing that. So to make that a crime, you know what I'm saying, which is another way to so you can get slipped back into involuntary servitude. But we don't
And
get in.
your correct status though, by the way, people, they cannot mess with you. You know what I'm saying? Your correct status as far as
Yeah.
smoking the plant.
Yeah, yeah, no, smart smoking the
Because
plant, and we'll do a whole nother episode on the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It's your right to use medicinal herbs. You know what I'm saying? As an American Aboriginal, at your own discretion, as long as you're not hurting nobody. If you ain't forcing nobody to do anything, there's no crime.
drop them gems,
You know what I'm
man.
saying?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to understand. Like as a U.S. citizen, you wondering like, man, like why they taxing me for driving too fast or jaywalking or smoking weed? I ain't hurt nobody. It's because they want your money. You know what I'm saying? The Federal Reserve and the IRS was set up by international bankers to draw as much wealth out of the people as possible. And that's why you own nothing. This is like on our last episode with the bankruptcy of the United States. You own nothing because the corporation is bankrupt. How could you own nothing in the corporation you pledge allegiance to, you know what I'm saying, or self-identify with is bankrupt. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
like that plays into a lot of this as well. So people understand that like and like I'll sit in there is no money like in the system right now because it's not backed by gold or silver. Like all of this stuff can be rectified if you change your status and you understand commerce, right? Because we'll do a whole episode about being a secure party and that because these are both sides of the coin, right? You gotta know who you are politically. And you gotta understand how to do business. If you don't understand either side of those things of the that coin, you're gonna be stuck in a powerless position where you don't have control of your life. Where
And that's very, like you said, they do that strategically to take those abilities away from us in our schools. They don't be teaching us how to conduct ourselves in business, and they don't teach us how to go through that status. You know.
exactly, exactly. And so I want to pull up right. So this is coming from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management Guide to Personnel Data Statistics. So this is ethnicity and race identification. So this is the FS 181 form. If anybody's familiar with it, but this is how your ethnicity is calculated by the federal government. So they have definitions for everything, right? So I'm gonna read the definition of American Indian or Alaska Native, right? So I'm gonna read the definition: a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. Now, that last half of that sentence was very important, right? And maintains the tribal affiliation or community attachment is because they know that there are literally tens of millions of American Aboriginals out here that are American Indian, right? But they don't maintain their tribal affiliation or community attachment. They
Mhm.
just identify as a U.S. citizen. So, with
I.e., black,
yeah, with
Latino,
black,
Hispanic.
Latino,
Yeah.
Negro, colored, all of these classifications or labels or brands that have been put on people, they know that you really are an American Indian, but they're going to put in the description that you have to remember who you are. That means you maintain your tribal affiliation or your community attachment, right? Like me and DJ, like we don't carry, you know what I'm saying, like because we're in Phoenix, right? So we don't carry Arizona State IDs, like you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, like I have no state identification. I got an Aboriginal ID and I got a passport. You know what I'm saying? I'm dealing with these when any of these cops or anything, they get the Aboriginal ID and I keep it moving because whatever ID you give them is going to tell them rather what jurisdiction you're in. So you give a cop a state ID, that's just giving him license to beat your ass. You know what I'm saying? If you do anything out of line, because
Mhm.
he has the jurisdiction over you. But you give a cop an indigenous or aboriginal ID, you know what I'm saying? Like he ain't got no business messing with you unless you hurting somebody. You know what I mean? And so that's very important to understand that maintaining the tribal affiliation or community attachment, that's in their own purpose because they know that they can trick you. If they can trick you to think into not knowing who you are,
Mhm.
into not keeping your attachments, into thinking you're from somewhere else, then they can skirt their treaty responsibilities, right? They can tax you. You know what I'm saying? They can put you on their trust and all these other things.
Mhm.
So, and another thing and this is in all the definitions from Asian to white to Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. they all have the phrase original peoples.
Mm.
All right. So now I'm gonna read the definition for Black or African American. And so it says a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa.
And you started off for the first part of that. What was that?
A person
A person. And
have
why is that important? Because
right. So a person can mean many things, right? And
mm,
like I said in the other ones, it all said original peoples. And Black or African American, it doesn't say person because person can be a corporation, a person can be a trust, a person can be a LLC. Person does not mean flesh and blood being, right? Peoples do, and that these are the legal
the legalese
games they
terms,
the legal games they play.
semantics.
These are the legal definitions. So a person does not mean a flesh and blood human being. That can just be an entity, which like or a strong man, like your social security number. If you look at your social security card, you'll notice that your name is written in all capital letters because it is a corporation. So, but like I said, in the definition of Black or African American, they're not giving you the original peoples, right? But let me read the definition of white just so people understand. So the definition of white they have on here is a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. So in the definition of white, and it's referring to North Africa, they had the common sense to put original peoples, or I should say common sense, the legal foresight to put original peoples, right? In Black or African American, there is no original peoples. You're not claiming to be a human, and that's what you,
Mm.
and on their documents, on what they're classifying this stuff as, because they created this system. You have to learn how to navigate through the minutia and this corporate paperwork. So when you put Black or African American or United States government application or anything, you're not claiming to be a human that has origins in any place. You're not tying yourself to a specific landmass. And if you don't tie yourself to a specific landmass, now you become non-descendable, right? And we're gonna get into what non-descendable means. 1 second.
Yeah, for layman's terms, people, it's really important to understand the difference, like he's saying, because um, simply put, they how can I say this? They know that we're the smartest. I feel like obviously we're the originals on everywhere, and we
Hmm.
make things a lot better. So the more people that can uh, trick and not let us know the truth, um, they're going to continue to do so.
Right. So we don't read the definition of non-descendable, right? So is non-ascendable is basically when they reclassify people, so you can't determine their origins. So you can't differentiate people between somebody. So if you take an Aboriginal of America and an Aboriginal of Africa or Aboriginal of Australia and you put them next to each other, they're gonna have similar skin tones. They're gonna have similar hair types, but they're gonna have different nationalities, and that's what we have to understand that. Um, a person can look like me, an Aboriginal from across from Fiji or somewhere else in the world can look like me, and we could be brothers. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean that we have the same nationality, and
Mm.
that's what differentiates us: the culture, the language, the nationality. And when they make us non-descendable, they just lump everybody in together to say you're black, you're African American, you're Negro. Forget all your individual tribes, your
Mm.
individual clans, your individual
Individuality.
culture. You're black and you're Negro, and now your new culture is pop culture. Your new culture is the corporate culture, whatever they show on TV. You know what I'm saying? And so when they make you non-descendable, and they basically when you disconnect somebody from their history, it's like starting a whole group of people all over again. So you could rebuild their morals, you could rebuild how they do business, you could rebuild all of these things from the ground up to support you. And that was colonization was about: to go to a new land, make the people dependent upon you, but the person that got there for resources and government and services, so that you can stay in that land and you can drain the people of their wealth and send it back to either where you want to go. I mean, where you're from, or your little enclaves that you set up on that land that are just for you and your people. So now, as we understand, the point of colonization was to take the land from you, take your wealth, and a lot of that's been done. So now they don't necessarily need this many people no more, which is why I personally they come out with this jab and everything. But understanding these are all plans and that have been in the works for hundreds of years
Hmm.
to defraud people of their land, their wealth, their heritage, and their culture. But all of that stuff can be brought back because it was all done feloniously. It was all done fraudulently. And once we understand that, we can begin to rebuild our nations and rebuild our families, because that's what a government really is. A government really was your family.
Hmm.
And that's what we've gone away from. We've lost those family ties and stuff uh, through different migrations, and
Yeah.
then through the integration into this matrix that is the city, because the city
Yeah.
is a matrix where they take you as a child, put you in public school, and tell you lies,
Yeah.
and then as an adult they expect you to navigate the system with an incorrect perspective and without the skills to sustain yourself. So they know you're gonna be independent, and that's
And
what
then
they
they,
want.
yep, and then they, give us slop against what I'm saying, make us eat a bunch of shit that doesn't, what I'm saying, that has nothing to do with how our ancestors were eating,
Hmm.
which is important because, that's how a lot of us receive benefits and, not benefits, but I should say, physical benefits to where we're not, we're immune to a lot of
Yeah, we're
um,
healthy. You know what I'm saying?
healthier, you know what I'm saying, and it's just there's more ways than one that they try to break us down, especially with diet, and that's a obviously that's a topic for another day, but it's just interesting how many different ways they how many ways they do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, man, from to finish off, I just want people to do their research, right? So look into your family, you know what I'm saying? Go to the oldest person in your family and ask them, you know what I'm saying? Like, where are we from? Like, do you know? Have you ever heard any tribal names growing up? Because you ask 8 or 9 out of 10 Black people if they ever heard they had any in your family, they're going to say yes. And half of them are going to tell you what tribe it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So if that oral history is still in your family, that is very important. And you should document that. Talk to your elders, record the conversations, find out who you are, and then put it on paper, claim it. You know what I'm saying? Because once you make your claim, that claim has to be rebutted or refuted, and they don't have the ability to do that because you are who you say you are if you do the legwork. So you say so. I want people to understand it's about what you claim. If you claim you're African American, you claim that you're descendant of a black slave and all those other things, then you get the treatment that is set aside for the classifications of those people who are nothing but descendants to the corporation. But if you able to find out that you are Aboriginal, you know what I'm saying, or even if you find out that you were some of your family was imported here, you're still able to get the same rights as an indigenous person.
Mm.
You just gotta get with the Aboriginal nation, you know what I'm saying, and get those rights. But you know, understand the United States was never set up for the indigenous people of the land. It was set up for immigrants, for the people coming here who wanted to run away from their nationalities, run away from their countries, and the worst system they had going on, to come to a land where the nature was pristine and the people were situated in republics where the people had the power. And they learned those situations, they learned those concepts over a few hundred years, did a revolution to get out of the situation they were in. They can adopt the Republican principles that were already being used by the Aboriginals here. So, like you're saying, just do the research, talk to your family, get closer with your family, actually know your individual story, and move from there, man, and make your claim. Yeah.
Moving different, man, because I mean, a lot of the other stuff that we'll be getting into, one might say you might want to do this with haste,
Yeah.
starting to get your status corrected. There's a lot of crazy stories, and so obviously we'll definitely get into with elevated and melanated people. Make sure you guys stay tuned. But yeah, man, I feel like it can again seem overwhelming with all this information, but at the end of the day, when you know the truth, you have to start moving different. You can't continue to let your family and let your ancestors down when whether you're a male or a female. Now, obviously, males, we do have some sort of, especially melanated men, a role out here to
Hmm.
take care of our queens and our families out here. So we definitely have to step up and do our part to start correcting our status and start moving different, like the kings that we are, like our fathers and grandfathers before us. So yes, like I said, it can be a bit overwhelming, but with time and patience and a plan to do that, man, we can. There's nothing we can't do together, especially. Especially because like a lot of us are so much more quote unquote woke as a team. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now we just have to get away from the I'm black and I'm proud, and
Yeah.
what I'm saying, we're aboriginals and we're proud.
Exactly, and it's the transition from being woke to be aware.
Mm,
Because when you first wake up, you're not really aware. You don't wake somebody up, well, what's going on? You know
mm,
what I'm saying? We want to be consciously aware of the system that we're in, and the way that we're navigating through it. You know what I'm saying? So once again, I do want to thank you guys for coming and sharing with us another podcast. Bring some more knowledge to the people, some more value to the people. Please like and subscribe, and see you guys next time. I'm saying peace.
Peace.